Season 15 of King of the Hill, aka the second and latest season of the revival, is honestly one of my favorite seasons in the show in general. It has fully regained its footing and is in full stride, firing on all cylinders. The comedy is in top form with a lot of great jokes that are uplifted by the script writing. The storyline where the Alley Guys found the cannon was a standout on that front, which was a nice balance to the cringy, yet fun, storyline of Bobby going on the chef show trying to juggle staying in the limelight and pleasing Connie, who he wants to move in with, and the dramatic moments cut deep to the heart of the show, being extremely wholesome moments that reinforced the strength of the characters and at times showed how far the characters have come from their simpler characterizations in the first seasons. It blends its comedic and dramatic moments extremely well in a way that's entirely in the spirit of the King of the Hill I know and love. Above all, the writers clearly still get the characters because while there were big changes for the characters, and for Nancy a reversion, they still feel like they're old characters in a way that's natural. The kids are the best example of this, especially in this season as we see more and more of them. Well, we definitely see a lot of Bobby and Connie. Really wish we got more Joseph because I feel like he's in need of a wake-up call sooner or later, especially now that Connie and Bobby are moving in together. If you didn't watch the seasons and are just watching these videos, Bobby and Joseph were living together. I'm certain that if we get another season, there will be an episode where Bobby and Connie have to help Joseph be more responsible, or at least find something meaningful to do with his life. But with Bobby, you could really see him coming into his own. He still is the fun goofball that he was as a kid, but he's embodying the teachings Peggy and Hank taught him. He's not afraid to speak up about anything he feels is wrong and doesn't care who he has to tell off. Plus, he's extremely principled, never compromising on his morals or vision. When he tried to play up being a heel, he gave up on it because he refused to treat his employees like garbage. And Connie is still the studious girl that Con and men helicoptered over, but being outside of their influence allows her to exercise a level of freedom she hasn't had before. She doesn't go crazy with it, but she has hints of rebellion in her. Sneaking out to sleep with Bobby is an obvious one. In the Hill house too? Insanity. A big part of all of this was that the season was able to get into its King of the Hill groove. Season 14 had the challenge of reacclimating us to Arlen, Texas and establishing what everyone has been up to in the years that had passed. It felt like watching season 1 again because we had to set up future conflicts and establish where people will settle into. We had to see how Hank reacted to an America and Texas he's been separated from before we can go back to their old shenanigans. And with Hank and Peggy back at home fully settled in, knowing what to do with their money, we get that. In the season premiere, for example, Hank and his bumbling friends try to find out who parked an electric car outside of his house, making it seem like he's the one to own it, which of course would be a great shame for him. Peggy even gets into it in her standard Peggy way. Something about Peggy remaining largely unchanged from her character in the original show is really endearing. What used to be grating is kind of charming to me now. Maybe it's because she's not taking care of anyone, so she's truly living her best life. Granted, there are some episodes this season where she was going a little too far, but one of them truly wasn't her fault and the others led up to being explained in a fantastic Peggy episode. More on that later. Anyway, Peggy was the first one to find out the owner of the car by happenstance and played it off by making it seem like she deduced it on her own. And the best part about this is that Hank slowly starts to appreciate the features of the electric car, which is very Hank. It's a storyline that feels a lot like older King of the Hill in the best way, and honestly, you could have put that storyline in an earlier season largely unchanged and it would still make sense. And with Bobby, he and Connie started dating again at the end of the last season in a really sweet moment. They lost touch with each other over the years as they both were focusing on their own careers, and when they finally start hanging out again, they both know the spark is still there. Their relationship is going smoothly, but their problems throughout the season mostly come from the people around them, like Connie's ex and Bobby's work partner Chain, or Connie's parents who are downright distraught that the two are together, or even the TV producers that wanted Bobby to play up a fake romance. Actually, I say that, but there was an episode where they were both pretty mad at each other and there was no outside force causing it. I mean, Joseph kinda stirred the pot, but he accelerated the issue more than anything. And that was when Connie became a mascot that earned some extra cash. Bobby was super excited about it because he was the GOAT mascot in his heyday. She brushes off his excitement, figuring it will be a piece of cake and free cash, but she absolutely embarrasses herself. Bobby takes her place to help her out and show her how it's done, but as he keeps filling in for her, he realizes that she's just using him at this point. They have their shouting match and Bobby realizes why she did what she did. She's so afraid of failure that if she sucks at something, she gives up on it. In one of the many touching moments of the season, Bobby reassures her that it's okay to fail as long as she doesn't give up because he'll be there for her through it all. And speaking of giving up, that's something that came up a lot this season, the importance of not giving up. It wasn't just Connie. Multiple times this season, characters have given up almost entirely, and it takes the support system we've seen grow over the years to bring them back from the brink. It's something that made this season in particular feel extremely heartwarming and why I tended to end just about every episode with a big old smile on my face. The biggest one in my opinion is the episode seeing Peggy deal with menopause. In the episodes before this, Peggy was being a little too overcharged in her Peggy ways. It kind of came out of nowhere because of how selfish she was suddenly acting. When Men found a guy she liked that threatened the dark edge in her writing, Peggy ruined her date so that Ben's writing would keep that edge. And in the next episode, she refused to let Nancy and Dale run the couples retreat for obvious reasons, and accidentally reveals Nancy's infidelity to the Reverend, only feeling bad when she learned how much this was doing for Nancy and Dale's relationship, enough for Nancy to re-end the affair she started back up with John Redcorn between season 13 and 14. If I can hazard a guess as to what happened, COVID almost certainly sent Dale's conspiracy mind down a crazy rabbit hole, which must have been rough to deal with. Combine that with Dale becoming mayor for a brief time, something that definitely consumed his time, and I could see Nancy going back to John Redcorn born. Anyway, Peggy was going through it, and while Hank was trying his best, it wasn't enough. Peggy gets to her breaking point after not being able to do something she should easily do and gives up trying to fight it. She has never been this slow, not even when Peggy was in a full-body cast after jumping off a plane without a parachute. It was so bad that Hank went out and got medicinal marijuana for her, something that was extremely hard for him. It's a touching moment, and it's enough to inspire Peggy to keep fighting to be unabashedly Peggy. What I really like is how Hank gives her the assist rather than trying to be by her side through it all, which is a shame because we were really close to having Hank smoke with Peggy to make her more comfortable, but it's fine. Hank has his drinking buddies and Peggy has her smoking buddies. Their marriage is one of the best in cartoons, and this episode is further proof of it. There's also Hank giving up on the idea of having or loving another dog after Ladybird. I saw complaints that Ladybird wasn't brought up before this, but it's Hank we're talking about. There is almost no situation where he would want to bring up Ladybird. That was his girl, his first kid that was there when he and Peggy weren't sure if they would have a kid. Even further, Hank truly believes that Ladybird is the reason why Bobby was born, so that bond goes extremely deep. That loss is probably the most devastating loss in his life, or at least top two. Remember how he was when his truck was dying? It was probably that amplified. It was something that hurt Hank so much that when Peggy decided to foster Caesar the dog, Hank wants as little as possible to do with him. Even when Caesar proves himself and Hank starts to warm up to him, Hank's still eager to let someone else take him. In a sad way, it was him talking to Ladybird that gave him the push to keep Caesar around. He loved Ladybird so much that he needed to process his thoughts about a new dog to her before he could fully accept Caesar, but I guess Hank did always have the best one-on-one conversations with Ladybird. Bill gives up on himself, which isn't really new, giving himself and his wallet completely to cuddle therapy. It takes Hank, Dale, and Boomhauer coming together to take a more active part in his life for him to snap out of it. And why cuddle when you can huddle up? I really wish that episode came before the Con and Bill episode because this episode could have been put anywhere in the season, and it sort of walks back one of the more surprising developments of the season, the friendship between Con and Bill. After Con and Min's divorce, Con was living in the garage, which I know Min was dogging him for every day. Eventually he moves, but in an act of either desperation or pettiness, he moves across the street with Bill. Con's situation must have been pretty bad for him to decide to move in with one of the quote-unquote hillbillies, and not only that, the most objectively pathetic one of the bunch who has taken things too far in the past when he's put into one-on-one situations with people outside of his core friend group. But on the other hand, Bill is the only one in the street who has gone through the mentally taxing process of divorce, and while his craziness doesn't look like Bill's, you could tell the divorce had an impact on him, meaning Bill would probably best understand what he's going through and sympathize, and vice versa. I think Con gets Bill a little more and understands why he is the way he is. He's a lot more tolerable of Bill being Bill and is a lot nicer to him than the others. I mean, it's still Con, but you could tell. And eventually Con appreciates Bill letting him stay there so much and, dare I say, cares about him so much that when he decides to sign the house over to Min and move away, he wants to make sure that Bill will be fine on his own. Con helps Bill with his self-confidence, takes him to the doctor, all to make sure Bill will be alright after he leaves. It's so out of left field for Con that Dale and Boomhauer, mostly Dale, thought it was some sneaky scheme to get Bill's house, but that's not the case because a real friendship has developed there, to the point that when Con moves, he decides to stay with Bill, realizing that living with Bill is a way better alternative than being alone. I would have never thought those two would become friends like this. The season was great throughout, and it ended with a season finale that I honestly felt was on the level of To Sirloin with Love. It didn't surpass it though, because To Sirloin with Love was already a fantastic way to end the show, but this season finale answered one of the biggest questions from the revival. Why did Hank leave Strickland Propane, his home away from home? To put it simply, Buck did Hank extremely dirty. Buck was leaving and was ready to name his replacement as Strickland Propane's manager, and you guessed it, he gave it to Rayboy, who, if you recall, was Buck's bastard son that was absolutely wilding out at the Propane convention. So, to Buck's credit, he did hire someone exactly like him. And side note, it's funny how this scenario reminded me of what happened in the Spongebob movie, and they reference the show later in the episode, but Hank sees red and quits on the spot because is there any other way to react? Hank is forced to look for jobs, and thanks to his impressive Propane resume, he gets the job in Saudi Arabia. And because he got that job, he was able to make enough money to eventually become the majority owner of Strickland Propane, something he probably thought could only happen in a dream. And it wasn't just Hank benefiting from Buck's betrayal. Despite Hank's doubts, Bobby looks for jobs himself to help out and gets one at a fast food place. This is where he realizes his passion for cooking and bringing joy to people, subsequently leading to him co-owning his own restaurant, a great source of pride for Hank. If Hank had been promoted to manager all those years ago, who knows how their lives would have turned out. I love this season. I really hope we get more of it, but if it did end here, well, we had a great run, and King of the Hill has shown us what a revival done right looks like. And if you made it all the way here, thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll see you around sometime.